Well, good morning. Good morning. Try it again. All right. Welcome to Harper College Career Stimulus. And we are very, very honored to have a great speaker today. I'll introduce him in a minute. In the meantime, what I'd like to do is I want to get some input from you all. I know some of you are brand new here for the first time. Can I have a show of hands who's new? Okay, wow. Those of you who are not new, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a retreat at my house with my staff, my counselors, on what we can do to go to the next level with career stimulus. And so we spent 4 or 5 hours together. Did a lot of, I hate to say it, but drinking and eating. But we talked a lot about where we want to go and what we want to do. And I want some input from everyone here. Even if you're brand new, I'm certain that you've been around to different job clubs and different events. And I have somebody taking notes. If you would speak loudly, tell me what is missing. What would you like to see? Where can we go? What level? And I want to give you one idea that I do have. I want to start an ambassadors club. I want to have it where veterans who've been here some time, or people who have a certain knack, maybe at coaching or whatever, or helping people, I want to have them help the new folks that come in and kind of mentor them along. And I have some other ideas with that as well. Does that make sense? I'm seeing some head shaking. Good. So that's kind of the thought that we came up with. I want to know some other thoughts that you have and elaborate on that whole thought. So if we could just spend 5 minutes or so, I'd like to get some of your input. Any ideas? What's missing? What's good? What's not good? Look at those hands go up. This is the part where you guys participate, I think. Yes, Rick.
I think the Career Stimulus Program is a wonderful program. You guys put on a lot of great workshops and seminars. One thing that I think people would appreciate would be maybe if you could get some hiring managers from that perspective in here from corporations or what have you to tell you what they're looking for in this tough market.
Okay, getting some recruiters here. One of the things I'd like to do for our evening program, instead of just having information, I want to have, University of Chicago has something called the roundtables. I was thinking of doing rectangular tables or something, I don't know, but the thought of it is having some recruiters come in, help to facilitate some of the tables, but have some very important controversial, not controversial, but just topics on maybe how to do a better job of cold calling or how to stay motivated or things of that nature. And then we can all, at different tables, talk about it. And I wanted to have conversations that both employed and people who have even landed from career stimulus to stay involved in our recruiters. So that's a thought that I would like to have. Mark.
That's another thing to hitchhike on what he just said. As a main speaker, have a panel discussion right here on stage with all the different HR managers of different industries, healthcare, project management, and then have a question and answer thing.
Okay, that would be good. Okay. Mary, you got that down? Okay. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Way up there? Okay. I feel like I'm like, I don't know, who does this? I'm no Vanna White, trust me.
One of the things that someone had mentioned earlier when we were snacking is that there's a lot of really good a lot of really good sessions, but I can't go to two. Can we maybe have a longer or shorter session so you can hit 2 topics in one day?
Okay, that's a good idea. 2 topics in one day, but shorter. Okay.
One of the things I've thought would be useful would be the networking breakout sessions we do. Sometimes do them random like you do now, but sometimes do them either by geographic location or by industry focus. So you're talking computer people with computer people, HR people with HR people, where you've got more common to relate with.
We're going to be changing the, starting next month, the networking sessions. They're not going to be random anymore. And we're not going to probably even do it. We're going to have it where you talk about different topics. And we'll probably, we'll put it together with status or We're thinking like executive level, pro tech or technical, and instead of industries, we're thinking of going that way. Does that make sense? Because I don't know if IT would share with IT and HR would share with HR. For 20 years I've been doing this, and I've heard both sides of the story of that. So I'm thinking, Bob, yes, maybe doing that, but maybe doing it by industry, by level, status. Does that make sense? Does that work better? I'm just asking. I don't know if it's right. I'm just asking if it's better.
One thing he said was that he thought we should also keep the random occasions. So
Okay.
In other words,
Okay.
trade off because there are advantages to the random group too.
I was thinking of having 2 randoms at the same time of doing those, so that if you want to just go to the random, you can do it, and if not, then you can go according to either status or industry, whichever way we go. And we might do sometimes status, sometimes industry. So I want to mix it up a little bit. Mayor.
I really don't know how this one would work because sometimes I go to these sessions, whether it be Harper or somewhere else, and I walk out with more questions than I walked in with. The information's great, but sometimes it's not detailed enough to make sense of it. So I don't know what the answer is to that one. But
I think that's where the ambassadors might come in. And then I think with the ambassadors, my thought would be is that we meet on a regular basis to make sure we're all on the same page and the same wavelength, to quote a Van Morrison song. So I think that it's really important that, that there's only so many of us, and there's a lot more of you guys, and there's some really talented people out there. All of you are, and some of you really have some interest and talent in the whole career coaching side of it, and I think that would be a really helpful thing. Anything else? Any other ideas that would help us get to that next level? A roster. If you're members and you have said that you want to be in the directory, yes, there is a roster. And we only share that information that you allow us to share. You have to write off and sign off on it. But if you're a member, it's on the members only section. And we're going to start taping these and having a video library of that as well. So we'll have some information there. The reason that we're doing this is that there's going to be some changes, and we just see that we've been doing this now for over 2.5 years. We're kind of doing the same thing. It's evolved. It's grown faster than we can keep up with, to be quite honest with you. And so what we're trying to do is just take it to that next level. We really want to take it to the higher level, and we're constantly trying to give you education, information, support. We really believe in that whole concept of paying it forward and helping each other, and that's what it's really, really all about. Yes. Yeah.
What about having an alumni group of people who have gotten jobs but still are empathetic and concerned with those who don't, and having some kind of place or situation for them?
Yeah, I'd like to have the alumni come back and help at those roundtable discussions and being part of it. I think that's a very, very good, important aspect. In the past, when I was at COD, we did have an alumni associated with the Den, but it became depressing, and I want to describe it in this manner. Everybody was doing things, if not beyond what the person who landed, and they say, well, I did that, and I did that, and I did that. How come I'm not landing? It became more of a depressive kind of thing than a positive thing, which really upset me. So, I want those alumni to come, and I want it to naturally come out to talk about it. But again and again, what every person talks about when they landed is being at the right spot at the right time and doing the networking stuff. And it's a thing that we don't want to do. And when we see that the numbers, the first hour, we have everybody here. The second hour, the breakout, most everybody's here. By the time we get to the networking, a certain amount of people have left. And I know that you guys are, have other things that you're doing. I get that. But sometimes I think it's just that you're taking off because it's the same old, same old. And I don't want the same old, same old. I'm constantly trying to improve it. So I saw a few more hands, so.
Maybe some kind of mentoring and information interviewing, or
Informational interviewing to teach how? Or
mentoring program, learn about some certain roles.
okay, we can get some informational interviewing going. Okay.
On the same note, I was thinking about role playing the interview process. So if you role play there's a lot of things that are happening that you can get into other than just the theoretical information. And maybe also have case studies of people who are successful in getting a job and those who almost made it but didn't. So with case studies, you can explore a lot of things that went right and not.
Okay. Yes, way in the back. Can you scream it out?
Okay. With the networking sessions, the one and two, I feel they were real good, in-depth look at who we are as a person. And one of the things in terms of networking is take that same level of depth to get us through what I'll call the salesperson.
Okay.
I think in terms of how to do networking, both in this group plus within our industry.
Absolutely. Okay.
And really break down our resistance to the sales process that we're in, whether we're or not.
See, I think those are the kinds of topics that I want to have with our breakouts, that we have like a 3-part series or a 4-part, whatever, the person who is the facilitator or the speaker, to kind of do those kinds of things so that you're taught and you have the opportunity to do it. So I like that kind of an idea. That would work out really well. Whatever we can do to help and get you beyond that resistance point. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Good. I love it. We've been talking about doing that too. So that's very great idea. Excellent idea. I am open, please, with ideas. Feel free to send me an email. It goes right to my iPhone. Trust me, I'm checking it every 2 minutes. I would love to hear your ideas and kind of go from there. So thank you for your input and for sharing. Just very quickly, I just wanted to announce a few things that are going on. Of course, how many people here have attended the Pump You Up job search with Thomas? Is it wonderful or what? Okay, our next one is July 1st and then July 15th. Definitely, there's an announcement in the packet, so take advantage of that. For those of you who are new or have not attended Networking 1, it's a 2-part series, July 14th and July 21st. That will be going on. And then we have an after-hours program, which is July 7th, on build a business case for your employment. It's going to be on main campus here, so you might want to take advantage of that. So those are the upcoming events that will be happening, and it certainly is on the website, and it's in the program as well. So it is my great, I'm sorry? No. They are welcome to be part of it. It's going to be for people who have not landed. So it's going to be the people who have been around for a certain amount of time, have been through 1-2 networking 1-2, and so on and so forth. They would help the new folks that come in, the brand new folks. So there would be a mentorship of ambassadors kind of thing. And then they would go out and start talking to other maybe industries and get some leads or things like that. So that might be helpful too. Okay, I'd like to stop it there and certainly introduce our keynote. And he's been here before. We don't do this often. In fact, we don't do it at all. This is one of the first times that we have asked a speaker to come back. And that is because he was so sensational the first time, and I know he'll be just as equally, if not better, this time as well. I'm glad to have him here. He's a sales all-star who handled multi-million-dollar national and regional accounts. He has extensive experience in identifying and hiring individuals with top-notch skills and certainly top-notch employees. He's a college football referee for the past 20 years. He's now an official in the Big Ten Conference. And I know that he's definitely loves University of Michigan. That's got to be his top one, I'm certain. He's a 2-time All-American, first American college player ever recruited to play in the Italian Football League, which I know he's going to tell you more about. And so I have to do this because he's going to kill me. I know it, so I'm going to do this anyways. So bear with me. trusty old phone that I love.
It's Michigan.
Sorry, okay, no more. I'm sorry. Now I can't get it to shut up. Sorry. Guess what? I'm from Michigan. Can you imagine? All right, so anyways, please give us a very, very warm career stimulus welcome to Pat Bayers.
Thank you. Thank you, Nan. You know, it's funny, she just played this song, Michigan, and I go to the stadium, and it's the biggest stadium in college football, actually in football. And that's a song that they play all through the whole game. And it takes me weeks to get it out of my head. So now she just put it back in my head, and then it keeps going. Hey, pardon me? No, that's okay. We'll wait till later. How's that? My name is Pat Bayers from Top Notch Presenters. I'm here to talk about higher and higher ability. I'm going to give you my experiences that I had over the last 40 years in football and 27 years in business. And been in your situation before. I'm going to tell you how I started. Let's start here. The biggest question I get all the time as a football official in the Big Ten Conference is, how do you become an official? You know, how did you get to that job? Well, for me, there's many paths. And like you're in the path right now of getting a job. So it takes time and there's a process that goes on. We'll talk about that later. But how I started to become an official was I started playing grammar school football. And when I started, I wasn't very good. It's just like you trying to get a job. Sometimes you maybe haven't had an experience interviewing. I'm working with a guy 47 years old. He's starting to interview for the first time in his life because he worked for his dad's company and the company went under, and he's 47. He needs to go out and get a job. So I've been working with him and going about this process. So I started playing football in grammar school. Wasn't very good. Took practice. You got to keep practicing, and that's why you're here today, to practice, to learn some more techniques of how to get a job. Okay? So I got better as a football player. As I got bigger, I got stronger, and I worked harder. The hardest job there is getting a job, especially today. So I worked harder, I got better. And all of a sudden, through my grammar school years in the 8th grade, I started getting the eye of all the local high schools. And the Catholic schools, mostly in the Chicago area, do a lot of recruiting of 8th grade kids. I know some people find that hard to believe, but that was many years ago, and it goes on today. As you hear about the stories with basketball players and football, they're being recruited all the time because jobs. That's if I'm a coach somewhere, that's my job, and you got to have better players. You got better players, you get a better chance to win. So I had a goal to get a scholarship to a Catholic school, and I did. And guess what? It started over again. In my first year, I probably wasn't very good because I was a freshman working with bigger kids. Go back, start. You work, you practice, you get better, you get bigger. So as I went through my high school years, my goal was to be a Big Ten football player. That's all I could think about. I worked hard, I lifted, I did everything there was. We won a state championship. I was an all-stater. I thought, here's my time. I was getting recruited to some of the big colleges, and all of a sudden, boom, it stopped. One day. See, I was a linebacker, and the Big Ten recruits 6'2", 225, 235 linebackers at this time. I was 6 foot, 190 pounds. Defensive coordinator at the high school helped me out. And guess what? During this time, you looking for a job, you're going to need help. And that's okay. But you got to learn during this process that there's going to be some people that want to help you, and there's some people that are not going to want to help you. And that's okay. But you got to understand that and realize the people you can get the help from and the people you can't. And you're going to realize who your friends are and who your friends aren't. And that's okay, because in the long run, when you get through the whole process, it's all worth it, because it's a very good learning experience. Okay? So, I got help from a defense coordinator, and he looked at me and said, Pat, I know you want to play in the Big Ten. He goes, it's not going to happen. He says, you're 6 foot, 190 pounds. They don't recruit that size linebackers. He says, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. He says, I got a call from a guy that just got the head coaching job at Western Illinois. He wants to make you your number one recruit. At the time, it was Division II, actually 1AA football, and it's not what I wanted. But he says, here's what's going to happen. He says, you're going to go there, you're going to play for 4 years, you're going to get a degree, and you're going to have a great career. I wasn't convinced. Well, guess what? I went there, I played 4 years, I was 3.5-year starter, 2-year All-American, broke 5 school records, an NCAA record, and I got a degree. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I still cherish it to this day. So when I get done with that, being an All-American, what's the next level? I want to play in the NFL. Well, guess what? They don't recruit 6 foot, 220-pound linebackers in the NFL. You got to be 6'3", 245, and so on and so forth. Well, I didn't give up. I went and I worked out, and I practiced, and I worked out, and I practiced, and I go to this camp, I'd go to the Dallas camp, and I go to the Houston camp, and at that time the USFL came on, and they, weighed me and measured me, and 6 foot, 220, I don't know, it's going to be tough. Well, guess what? I stuck with it, and I come home, and my dad say, how'd it go? And I says, I don't know, Dad. 6 foot 2, I'm too short to play outside linebacker, and I'm too light to play inside linebacker. He says, stick with it, keep the faith. You don't know what's going to happen. So I don't know, Dad, it's going to be, hey, if you really want this, trust me. Keep the faith, keep working hard. You won't believe what happened. He says, when I was in business and sales, if I told you I'd be a district manager at the end of my career, everybody would laugh at you. 30 years in his career, I think the last 15 of them was a district manager. Okay, so I worked hard. I got my degree, and I'm working at a bar, Western Illinois, and I'm working happy hour. I'm done. So I figured I'm going to keep working out and trying and so on and so forth. And the phone rings. It's Pat there. Yes. Right here, he's working. So yes, my old defense coordinator. He's at Ball State now. He used to be at Western Illinois. How's the tryouts coming? I go, too short to play outside linebacker, too light to play inside linebacker, do this. Okay. He says, I think I got something for you. I says, you got something for me? He says, yeah. I says, where? He says, in Italy. I says, Italy? I don't know they play football in Italy. He says, I'm telling you, here's the deal. There's going to a guy call you Monday. They're looking for a linebacker. You're going to go to Italy for 10 days. If you make the team, you stay. If you don't, we're sending you back home. By the time he had the conversation, I had my bags in my hand. I'm like, where do I go and when? He said, I don't know. He's going to call you Monday. Okay, I put it back down again. This could be months from now. Monday morning, guy calls me up. He says, yes. We're recruiting linebackers to play in Italy. I'm the head coach. The Italian Football League's been around for about 5-6 years. We bring Americans over, only 2 Americans to play, and to teach the game to the Italians because we don't really have it in high schools. It's more clubs. So football in Italy is sort of like soccer here 20, 30 years ago. It was just getting started. I says, when do I go? He goes, this is Monday morning. He says, Friday. I said, Friday? He said, yes. Do you have a passport? I said, no. He said, you better get one. So I ran home, worked with my agent, we got a passport, and I'm on a flight out to Italy. I get there. Because I was the first player ever recruited, a college player recruited Italy, they made a big deal about this. And when I got off the airport, there was tons of people there. There was, I had to go to, I was at a TED Topic of Italy, being interviewed and this and that. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable experience. Keep the faith, keep working hard. You don't know what's going to happen. I had a great career. Played for 2 years. And one of the guys on the team is Augusto Sanatini, 6'5", 295 nose guard. And during my high school years, I loved to cook. I always loved to cook. And I said, Augusto, I understand you have a restaurant. Now, this is Bologna, Italy, which is the #1 town for pasta in Italy. And I guarantee anything you eat is fantastic. It's just so good. So I said, can I come in and be an apprentice with you? You know, I'll do whatever I can just to be around the kitchen and learn. He said, absolutely. In 3 weeks, he lost the cook. I said, oh, Gusto, you're going to hire somebody. He says, absolutely. And I said, you have anybody in mind? He goes, yeah, I do. I says, who? He goes, you. I said, you're going to be kidding me. He says, yeah, I've been watching the kitchen. You're really good. You're picking up all kinds of stuff. I became a saucier. I worked 9 months in Bologna, and then I went to the island of Elba and worked for 3 months as a saucier. It's funny because I learned 5 sauces. I can make 100 and some dishes on it. I worked in Elba 10, 12 hours a day for 3 months straight. I learned everything about Italian cooking there is, and it's all here. Because he taught me that way. He says, you don't, your recipes, it's all here. There'd be a time in Italy when I'd make something for somebody and they wanted to talk to the chef. Oh, that was so good. So I come out and here's a Polish-German kid from the south side of Chicago playing football and cooking in Italy. And the guy says, no, can't be. That's not true. Don't know what can happen. When I got down there, time to get a job. I could ask my dad, Dad, would you help me get a job? He says, absolutely. You know what he does? He hands me the want ads. That's how we got jobs back then, right? Nowadays, a big different scenario, but we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about this process and everything else. So I went in, and I started calling. I got an interview. In fact, the last time I was here, remember the guy was sitting here that hired me in my first job out of Italy. He looked at my resume. He says, I tell you what, you ain't got much experience of selling industrial equipment, but you had to be disciplined, and you had to work hard to achieve the level you had. So he gave me a chance, and he taught me everything there was. Again, what do we talk about? You're going to need help. That's okay. And he helped me. I started selling industrial equipment. Young kid, went this way, that way. Again, had to practice, got better. First couple of jobs maybe didn't go as well as I went, but I got a lot of experience, and I kept working hard. I kept the faith, and I kept working hard. Before you know it, I got into the industrial battery end of it, and I became very, very successful. My income went from $50,000 to $150,000. I worked hard, and guess what? I'm the top salesman for 5 years of a certain product, and what happens to the company? They go to a Chapter 11. It's over. Got to start over again. Well, because of my reputation, I did so well, I went to another company, and they recruited me right away. Boom, went to work, was successful. Hated it, though. Just hated it. Just didn't work out. People and so on and so forth. So a headhunter called me and says, hey, I'd like you to look at this job and opportunity. And I'm like, I know them, but I'm like, it doesn't look good. They have no salespeople, right? And their sales have dropped from 20 million down to 12 million, or 18 million down to 12 million. Right, they need a guy like you to start up to get it back where it was. Went through 12 interviews. 12 interviews. My wife says, you've been through how many interviews? I think I did 6, 7, I don't know, somewhere in that number. And she says, they haven't given you a pay program yet. I said, I know, but I don't know why. I'm in this deep. I'm sticking with it. I don't know why. It's just I'm going to go through the end of this. She says, this is a little ridiculous. So I finally got to the end of the 12th interview, and I says, is there anything to do with the pay program? And when we offer you a job, that's when we tell you when the pay is. Okay. So I'm like, and I was telling my buddies, and he says, oh, what a concept. I got to do that with my customer. You give me a PO, and then I'll give you a price afterwards. How's that? I got the job. Fantastic. I was so excited. And the guy that recommended me says, you were perfect, and it was. For 5 years, it was fantastic. I got a guy hired for the East Coast. I got one of the guys hired to actually run the division, and then I got another guy out west that run the West Coast. And we took 12 million to 22 million in 3-4 years. And the guy that hired me left. And the second guy that was my hiree left. And a new guy comes in, and I meet him for lunch with a client. And the first thing he says to me is, let me tell you how the Big Ten officials have made mistakes for my university that's cost them so many games. I was shocked. 3 months later, I was laid off. That happens. In the worst time since the Depression, I am laid off with no job. What do? Quit? I got 2 kids, 7 and 10 years old. I got a wife that doesn't work. 3 weeks, I had 2 offers. So, anything is possible. I'm going to give you a program. I'm going to give you ideas to take these ideas to the next level. I'm going to open your mind. We're going to talk about that. Let me finish up with my officiating career, and then we'll get on to it, okay? When I got done playing football, I went to work. Well, I started coaching football. And I learned that coaching can be very frustrating, but I've learned over the years of sports and business are so much alike. Winning and losing jobs. When you're in a job, winning and losing orders or whatever you're selling or whatever you're doing or accomplishing or being having a different product and being successful. So, for the first time out of my life, I'm 30 years old and I'm out of football since I'm 9 years old. This is how I became an official. What's important now is you're going through some tough times, but the fact is you need to network. That means you need to get out a little bit. And this is how I became an official. My father was at a wedding, and the girl getting married, the father was a Big Ten football official. And he knew me from my playing days and said, "Hey, what's Pat doing now?" And my dad said, "Well, he's coaching, or he's in between coaching or something." You know what? If he gets out of coaching, tell him to call me. I remember seeing him as a player for years. He'd be a good official. So I'm on a football, and my dad says, "Hey, why don't you call this guy? Maybe you could be an official." I said, "Be an official? I hate those guys. Are you kidding me? I've had to put up with those guys for years as a coach, as a player. They're always in my way." He says, "You know what? I don't know. There could be something here." Okay. Well, as a football player, and you've been doing it for so many years, you smell it in the air when fall comes around. Like July, August, you just know it's coming. And sure enough, I got the itch again, and I'm like, okay, this is one way maybe I can keep my career going. So I call the guy, and I says, "I understand you talked to my dad, be interested in being an official." "Great. Meeting down at Soldier Field at this date, go there, go to it, see what you think." I go in there, there's 150 guys, 200 guys in this meeting. And I'm looking around, and I recognize a lot of these officials from TV. And I sit down, and 2 seconds later, another guy sits down next to me. It's a guy named John O'Neill, who's a Big Ten referee. You might have seen him on TV all the time. We played high school football together for years. He says, "So you want to be an official?" I says, "I don't know. I hate these guys." He says, "Stick with me. You watch. See where you might like this." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm recognizing all these guys. Are they Big Ten officials?" He says, "Oh, yeah. This is where I'll start from to be a Big Ten official." And I went back in my head, and I went, boy, I remember when I was in high school, I wanted to be a Big Ten football player. Well, guess what? Something just occurred. I can become a Big Ten football official, and I can have my dream, not all the way, but close. I worked my first game that year with John O'Neill, freshman game at Brother Rice. 20 years later to the date, I'm in front of Ohio State, USC, biggest crowd in Ohio State history, 106,000 people, the biggest viewing crowd in ESPN history, and me and him are in the middle of the field shaking hands and getting the captains out, and I told them about it 20 years later. So imagine what can happen. It's unbelievable. Okay, I'm going to start the program. We're going to talk about, let me give you a couple ground rules. You got a question? Raise your hand. We'll get questions. We want to get feedback. I'm going to ask questions. I don't do any handouts. I'm going to give you a lot of notes. I'm going to ask you to take notes, and there's certain things that I'm going to say is important, and I'm going to ask you to write them down. Program basically is going to talk about 4 ways to get started, because the hardest thing to do is to get started. When I got laid off one morning, I was like, Where do I go? Well, I remember years ago I got the want ads. Well, that ain't going to help you much this day. Could help you some, but it ain't going to help you on. We're going to talk about 4 ways to getting the job done. Because what you do in the first interview is not what you're going to do in the 12th interview. Hopefully you don't have to go through that, by the way. We're going to talk about 10 ways of being a professional and how important it is to be a professional nowadays. Because people are reading you all the time. As a football official, they're reading me, everything I do. We do background checks. The FBI checks us out. I mean, there's so much money and so much at stake. And it's the same thing with companies now. Times are tough, and companies are lean, so they're very particular what is. So we're going to talk about 10 ways being a professional. And as Nancy said earlier, we were talking about where we're at in the program and where we would like to be if you've been here for a while. I'm going to talk about self-evaluations, which is really important. As an official, I am graded on every football play. How I look, what I do, how I act, what I say. Talk about communications and the 2 ways of communications. How important they are at all time, because there's somebody watching you when you don't even know it. Okay? When I started all this, and my father always was bless you. My father, he was always my biggest fan, and he always encouraged me all the time as a salesman, as a football player, a coach, or as an official. And he taught me many years ago that you need a formula. And we're going to talk about a formula. A plus A minus E equals S. Got to have something basic. And if you remember, I was talking about 4 ways to get started and 10 ways to be a professional. I deal with 4 downs and 10 yards. I make it easy. If you don't make it easy, I do 4 things 4,000 times. I don't do 4,000 things 4 times because I can never do it. So you got to make it easy. We got A plus A minus C equals S. Anybody give me the first A? Absolutely, attitude. I get laid off. I got to start working that afternoon to get a job. So what am I going to have? A positive attitude. Remember, you're going to call people that you haven't talked to in a long time. If they like you, they'll help you out. Sometimes they'll make an initial investment in with you and help you a little bit, but then all of a sudden they get busy, and you got to realize, okay, that ain't working out. We got to go somewhere else. I mentioned earlier about the guy that I'm helping to get interview and help him out to go to interviews because he worked for his father. He's 47 years old, and he's going through this. And I told him, hey, I got this interview, and work on it. And I said, okay, don't only work on that one. Keep working on the other ones. Oh, no, this one's good. Listen, everything looks good. It ain't done until done, okay? Keep working on it. So what's important when you're interviewing, that you're not interviewing with one company or 2 or 3, as many as you can. But manage that time. Don't overlap. You understand where I'm going here? Too much, ain't good. Too little, not good. Grandma always says, I have a grandmother, 97-year-old, she still drinks and smokes. Moderation, Pat, moderation, always in the middle here, okay? All right, important. Attitude, second A. Action, well, there's a lot of action you can have, but maybe not good action, but A, second A. Ability, that's a good one, but it ain't it. Because I don't have a lot of ability as a football official, and I can talk to a lot of coaches that say the same thing. But you're right, ability is one of them, but it's not what I'm looking for. No? Achievement. Well, achievement is getting the job. We're not there yet. Attendance? We'll get there. That's another part of my 10 ways. Access? No. Aptitude? No. Activity. Excellent. Activity. As a football player or as a football official, I got to read the rule book. I got to take tests. So I got to have good activity. So what you have to do is, in your interview, is you got to work the phone, you got to work the emails, you got to have a system in place, or when I'm saying activities is you've got to do certain things every day, because you're going to do them for so many weeks and they're going to get old, and it's going to get hard. And then, I'm not saying don't take a break. I talk to guys that sometimes they went to the ball game in the afternoon. That's okay. If you put good 4 hours in there, by the 5th hour, you're ready to talk to the wall. Okay? So understand that. But activity is huge. Know your activity. We have to weigh in every year. So I have to be a certain weight my first year, and I can be the same or anything lower. That's it. So every year it gets harder, but I got to do it. Every year we have to have a test. You got to do it. Hard. Okay. Attitude plus activity minus E. Ego. Sometimes when I'm working out in front of all these people, you get an ego, you throw a good flag, this and that. I can get humble real quick. I've had it. I've taken that flag out, I've thrown it, and I've seen it in midair, and I wanted to grab it before it hit the ground, and it was too late. Ego. Keep yourself at an even level. Don't get yourself too down. Don't get yourself beat up. Don't get yourself too high. When you go through that interview and you come out of it and you think it's great, it's my kiss of death during a football game. When I get done with a football game and I feel so good about it that I've made all the calls and I made them right, and then the film comes on. Oh, awful. Awful. Just didn't know it. Okay? So, ego. Always keep yourself on a nice level. And don't get too high, don't get too low. Second E. Nope. Nope. Excuses. As a football player, there's time when I come off the sidelines, coach, come here. Yeah, coach. What happened there? Well, I got blocked. No. You don't get blocked. Don't make excuses. People, how's the job hunt? Oh, well, this ain't good. Made some mistakes. Ever make a mistake? That's why you're here. Make the mistakes here. Ask the question. Ask your questions with your colleagues, everything. Find out what's going on. Make the mistakes there. Don't ever make a mistake in front of 100,000 people? I have. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. They booed me for 3 quarters. And somebody got creative years ago and they put letters on our back so now they know who we are. It used to be we were all in stripes. Nobody could tell who's who what. Now they know positions and names. And it's funny because when I first got in the league, I never realized these coaches knew the officials that good. They know us so good that they get a card in your picture at each position. So the first time I go to Penn State, I meet Joe Paterno. And he says, "Hi, Pat. Good to see ya." I almost died. He knew who I was. But they know who we are. They know who we are. So don't have any excuses. Excuses are going to slow you down. Attitude and activity are going to put you in the driver's seat. Okay? And last one is success. It's a basic thing, but it's something you can always go back to when you're in a time of trouble, when it gets hard. When I do this for myself as an official, when I have a bad game and they're marking me up here. I mean, we're graded all the time. It's a difference of making a bowl game and not making a bowl game. There's times that, close calls. I was involved in a bowl game last year. Some of you might remember it. It was the Tennessee, North Carolina, which they changed 3 rules on one play that I was involved in. They were looking at it for weeks and finally determined that I should have did this instead I did this, right? Well, if it took them 3 weeks to do it and me a half a second, hello, I don't think I did anything wrong. My point, okay? So, A plus A minus C equals S. Good formula. First, we've got to have a goal. What is a goal? Anybody? A goal is a burning desire to achieve something. Nancy was talking about her testing her doctors and that's all she thinks about. I think about games sometimes. I got a big game coming up, and I'm always thinking about it. It's a burning desire to achieve something. Right now, you're in the process of looking at a job, and you've got a burning desire. You want to keep going. You want to think about it. It eats you up. That's what's going to make the difference in it. And that's good, and it's bad. Don't let it beat you up too much. Don't let it beat you up too much. Take it at an even level. One, you got to have a goal. This is the 4 ways to get started. One, you have a goal. 2, got to get started. I looked into want ads years ago. What do? Get on Career Builders. You go to seminars, all this stuff to get yourself started. It's like you get the job, you're not going to get the VP job usually to start it off. You're probably going to have to work your way up, depending on the circumstances. But that's how you get started. Emails, networking, calling people you know for years, people you knew in your industry, or somebody else has got a contact. I did that for days. Some of it turned out, some of it didn't. Okay? That's how you get started. That's number 2. Number 3, you got to know how to finish. You got to know when the time comes and close it and get on it. You've got 3 interviews going on, A, B, and C. You've got to learn how to make choices and know which one you want and go after it. Again, back to that goal, that burning desire. This is the one I want. 4, this is called a process. And you've got to understand that it's a process. If you're starting out, it's going to take time. I had 2 offers in 3 weeks. I had a week after that to think about which one I wanted. You got to understand, if you're in interview 1, there's certain things you're going to do. We'll talk about that. If you're in interview 3, there's certain things you're going to talk about. You don't want to be talking about things at interview 1 and interview 3. So you got to know where you're at in the process. And we'll talk about that in self-evaluation. Any questions at this point? 1, 3 to finish, and 4 to understand it's a process. Finish, how to finish it, how to close it, how to close the job. Please stop me anytime. It's important that you get this information. There's not a lot of information here, and then you put on there what you want. That's why I think it's important that you make the notes. Four ways to get the job done. Communication. How many types of ways to communicate? 2. What are they? Verbal and nonverbal. We're going to talk about when you have going through the interview process and you're sending an email. How many ways? You got emails, you got voicemails, you got letters, you got when you come there, when you come to the interview, nonverbal and verbal. Let's talk about verbal. Every time you write an email or you practice, remember I talked about practice? A voicemail. Practice your voicemail before you do it. You don't want to get in and then what do? You screw up the whole job. You could be the best person for that job in the world. Practice before you do a voicemail. Emails. Have somebody check it. I'm the worst. I can't type. I broke my fingers so many times I go every which way. So it takes me a long time. But take your time and get help. You know you're going to have certain people that are going to help you. You know certain people are not going to help you. But it's important to get help and make sure you get it right. How many times can you make a first impression? Once. Communicate verbally. Second one. The person that's doing an interview, that's interviewing you, has a what? Agenda? Need. Exactly. Number 2, first to communicate, second, meet needs. They have a position open that you think you're right for. So you've got to do something that's going to convince them you're the right person. And how do you go about that? How do you meet needs? Research. I do a lot of research, but when you're in the interview process and with that person, there's a way to get information from them. And how do you do that? Ask questions. Ask questions. You want to get all the information you can. Is there such a thing as a dumb question? No. We say this all the time as officials. If you don't ask the question and you don't get the rule right, you're not going to like it. It ain't going to be good. Meet needs. That person has a job. That person has a problem. You're the problem what? Problem solver. You're there to solve their problem. Okay? So that's 2. Meet needs. Number 3. Do you think there's a possibility that they might be interviewing somebody else? Small thing. So what do you got to be? Pardon me? Right. 2 things. Number 3 is be unique and accessible. And accessible. My point being is, ask questions, get involved, be enthusiastic, attitude, all the other stuff. This thing is all going to come together when you see it at the end. Okay? So, be unique in that aspect. These are techniques that we're talking about. And accessible is when they try to call you or send you an email, respond back. Some people, I'll let it go. I'll get it tomorrow. Oh, that's how you show you're a little bit different. I'll tell you a little bit when I talk about being a professional and some of the things that we go through as an official to get to this next level. Okay? So number 3, to get the job done, be unique and accessible. Number 4, this gentleman that I've been working with for the last month, 47 years old, interviewing for the first time, calls me and says, when should I call back? When was the last time you talked to him? Well, 3-4 days ago. Anybody call you? No. Should I call back? Absolutely. Number 4, follow up. I don't care if you're interested in a job or you're not interested in a job. That's a good habit. Okay? So number 1, communicate verbally, because there's 2 types of communication. We'll talk about the other one later. Meet needs. The person doing the interview has a problem. You're the problem solver. Meet needs. Number 2. Number 3, be unique and accessible. No, okay, how do I be unique? Think about it. Ask questions. Be enthusiastic. A lot of things you can do. Research. Very good. Research. You come in an interview and you know, excuse me, more about the company than they know. And that's happened. Very good. And then number 4, follow up. All these things we're talking about are habits. Good habits and bad habits. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to take my time, write it down, and remember it. Somebody told me this in 1990, and I'll never forgot it. I was in a seminar and said, what you do when you don't have to determines what you'll be when you no longer can help it. I'll say it again, because I want you to write it down. This is habits. This is good habits. Good habits and bad habits. Good habits is going to bed early and getting up early. Bad habits is going to bed late, waking up late. You get up at 9 o'clock, half of the day is gone. The person that works late in the afternoon. And we all know, because I can tell, that we've all had some experience that when you get into a job you love, you don't mind working 12 hours a day. I told the story about cooking, and I worked 3 months, basically, 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. Was it hard? Absolutely. Was it worthwhile? Absolutely. But I loved it, too. It's the same thing with this. You're going to get into a job, but habits are going to make a lot. And that's why I talked about egos earlier, because sometimes you're being successful, and I've been successful in the sales business, and all of a sudden your ego gets to you, and you think you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. It's the same thing as an official when, I've had 3 bowl games in a row in the last 3 years, but you know what? If I don't do the same thing all the time, I might not be going this year, because it ain't what you did, it's what you're going to do. So let's talk about habits. What you do when you don't have to determines what you'll be when you no longer can help it. I sure will. Thank you. I was hoping, because then I know you're listening. What you do when you don't have to will determine what you'll be when you no longer can help it. That's good habits and bad habits. Go ahead. What you do when you don't have to will determine what you'll be when you no longer can help it. There's a reason that Joe Paterno's been successful for 40-some years. He has probably a good ethic. And a lot of people in the business world or sales or whatever the case, whatever it is that they're successful in, they always have a story and always have good and bad habits. Now, do we all have bad habits? Absolutely. I'm not going to mention mine, but that's okay. But you got to know. You got to know what priority is in the right time. Okay. Okay. Got that? 10 ways to be a professional. First one, commitment. I'm going to give you time to write this down. Commitment. How do you show commitment? To get to the Big Ten is like playing football. I worked grammar school. I worked high school. I worked Harper Junior College. And then you get a chance to work Division III, and then you work 1AA, and then you finally get to the Big Ten. So I start working as what they call a non-staff official in the Big Ten, and I worked it for 7 years. When you're a non-staff guy, that means you get one game a year in the Big Ten, and then you go back to the Division III or Division 1AA conference, and you work that the rest of the year. Now, 7 years seems like a long time. Well, it is. Most people takes 1 or 2 years to get into the Big Ten after they work as a non-staff official. I got passed up 4 different times. Did I want to quit? Absolutely. I kept seeing all my buddies move up and getting into the Big Ten and all my buddies on TV and everything else, and I'm still working 1AA football or whatever the case may be. Tough times pass. Tough times go away. Tough people don't. And I hung in there, and I made it. So when you finally get the call to go in the Big Ten, here's what happens. They call you and says, supervisor official, Dave Perry. He just retired 2 years ago. He just passed away a month ago. He calls me. He says, Pat, I want to interview for the Big Ten. Okay. Well, the first thing is you're going through interview process, you're getting help from people, right? So all my buddies start calling me, do this, dress like this, get that. And the one thing my friend tells me is, show up an hour early. I said, show up an hour early? He says, yeah, show up an hour early. He's really conscious about time and being on time. It's okay. So I showed up 50 minutes early. And I walked in the hotel, the lobby, and there he was sitting. So I walked up to him, and I said, Mr. Perry, Pat Bayers. He said, oh, yeah, Pat, how are you? I said, if you have to interview somebody else, I can wait over here. He looks at me, he says, no, I'm waiting for you. Talked about commitment. Interviews, make sure you're on time. Are you going to be late, or can it happen where traffic, an accident, weather? Okay, cell phone call, let them know, please communicate that way. But be early, get on time. That shows commitment. The person that runs in that interview late and all over the place and is not ready, and you're sitting there ready to go. Big difference. Big difference. Show commitment. Show commitment. 2, passion. Do you think I show passion for football or sales or the things I've done? Cooking? Cooking, yeah, cooking. I get excited about cooking. Everybody's got to eat. I always thought to myself, I always have a job. Think about it. Show passion. How do you show passion in an interview? We talked about it earlier. What else? Research, that's going, but you what? Ask questions. Show passion when you're asking your questions. I noticed in your conveyor thing and the way it runs like this, and how does that go around, and can you tell me more about it? If you're enthusiastic about because let's face it, that person might be in that job 35 years, and that's been their life. It's like talking about your family. You know, I talk about my son, I talk about my father. I mean, I get enthusiastic. You think when you're talking to a person and you're asking these questions and you really want to know, and how do you know that you're showing passion too? By doing what? In the interview process, what you should be doing all the time? Eye contact, smile, listening, taking notes. Who's the winner? Give me a hand. There you go. Take notes. Is it okay during that interview process that the person looks at you and telling you something and you're taking notes and you say, excuse me, I didn't get that. Can you say it again? Is that okay? I think so too. They're like, they'll take a step back. Boy, that person is really showing enthusiasm, and this is really important to them. And it might be a job you have no idea or no inkling to get or no way that you want it. But what you need to do at that time is what? Practice. It's okay to keep practicing. Because sometimes, when they're talking, and probably the best interview you could ever have is they talk the whole time and you're just writing, taking notes. And they're like, oh, that was great. You didn't do anything. I have my best games. I never threw a flag. Okay? See my point? So show passion. Take notes. I'm sorry, sir.
Taking notes could be a distraction, but at the same time, during the interview process, if it's all right to ask the interviewer, is it right for me to take notes? Is that okay?
That's a good start. You know what that is? Anybody idea what that is? Can I take notes if you ask or you don't ask? Talked about what I talked about earlier, communication. As I asked about, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Right? Communication. A lot of communication needs to be done. In your homes, a lot of miscommunication all the time. Okay, 2, passion. Number 3, we talked about a little bit earlier. So important to be a professional is listen and learn. Very important. Listen and learn. Taking notes. What you're doing now is taking notes. You're practicing now. I got to go home and practice my test tonight. 4, character. Being a professional. What is character? Character. Character. What is character? Pardon me? Integrity. Remember, I'm a football player. You're going to go, make it simple. 4 downs, 10 yards. What you do when nobody's looking. That's character. If you're an outside salesperson, 90% of the time, you're going to be on your own. If you're in a cubicle, 90% of the time, there's going to be somebody standing over on your back or shoulder watching what you're doing. What you do when nobody's looking. Communication. Second, nonverbal. As a football official, I have a uniform. Do you know we have a whole class on how to dress? Can you be overdressed in an interview? Yes. Yes. Why? You're not a fashion statement. Is it okay to ask what the dress is? Absolutely. Dress for each company is so different nowadays. Business casual, suit, whatever. Ask the question. I get help from my wife all the time. I get up this morning. What do you think? Okay? I don't like that tie. Oh, okay. Which one is it? Ask. Communication. Okay? We have a class to dress. Coaches look at you, how you dress. When you come into a room, they're going to look how you dress. Now, can you be overdressed? Yes. Can you be underdressed? Yes. Talk about dress, nonverbal. That's communication. How they're reading you all the time. You're reading them all the time. I tell the story is last year at the Alabama Penn State game on national TV, play game of the year, game of the week. Joe Paterno and Saban and big Alabama, America plays football and we live it. I mean, it went on for hours. Pardon me? You're what? So, I have a mic on the field just like this one. And the lady comes out before the game, and she puts it up here and hooks me up. And it was pouring rain before the game, so a lot of moisture in Alabama and this and that. So she takes out a condom. She said, no, I got to put it on your mic. She says, because of the rain, you got to protect it from the weather. I was okay. She puts it on. Going through the game, and all of a sudden, come across a receiver, and defensive back hits him and runs, and boom, and the mic goes flying off, and I grab it, I put it back on, and getting back, so the next play, I come up to my position, and I go, and my back judge is yelling, "Hey, Pat." What? Pat, your condom broke. So what? Your condom broke. Sure enough, I look back, the condom broke, and it's hanging out of the back of my pants. And my first thought was, how am I going to explain this to my wife? What are you doing with a condom? Dress. So important to know how you dress. Check yourself all the time. If you're eating something, you're drinking in your mouth, is it more offensive than your breath or something like that? Check everything. Especially if it's game time. Game's on the line. This is a big interview. This is it. This is whether you make it or you don't make it. Know that. Be prepared for it. We make mistakes. We have a philosophy. Make the mistake when it's 53-3, not 10-7. Nobody's looking. Not important. Okay? Communication. Dress. How you act. My supervisor, Dave Perry, always had a saying, coaches get emotional. Kill them with kindness. When you're going through the interview process, when the moment you drive into the parking lot to the person you meet that cutting the grass, could be a nephew, could be a son. Hi, how are you? You get inside, reception, whatever. Kill them with kindness all the way through. We have a saying, kill them with kindness, you can't go wrong. Remember that in the interview process, that part of communication. Nonverbal communication. In this tough time, it's going to take a lot of courage. Pick up that phone, call that friend you haven't known in 15, 20 years or whatever, you need something. You need help, you need inside this or whatever. Have the courage to do it. They're willing to help you. I've had these calls all the time. The guy that called me that's 47 years old, I haven't talked to him in 10, 15 years. He goes, I heard you get involved in this stuff. And I said, yeah. He says, I had never interviewed in my life. I worked for my dad, as I mentioned earlier. Had the courage to make the calls. When I'm out in a football field and 110,000 people, sometimes I'm going to make the call. Have I cost teams games? Yes. That's why I'm there. That's why you're here, to learn and have courage to make the calls, make the contacts, and do what you have. Do the networking you have to do. Sometimes you don't want to do it. Have the courage to do it. That's number 6. Courage. Have courage. You want me to go over the numbers? 1, commitment. 2, passion. 3, listen and learn. 4, character. I'll say it. You say it. 5, communication, nonverbal. 6, courage. 7, what are you? You are a problem solver. They have a problem, and you're going to be solving it. And that's what's in your mind all the time, is how you can solve that problem. All the things we talked about today, that's always going through your mind. They have a problem, you're going to be the solver. That's how you get that job. And that's the way you got to think. Self-discipline, it gets harder. Number 8. As I get older and I have to run, the hardest thing is not running, the hardest thing is getting there to run. Because there's so many other things going on all the time. The hardest part is getting there to work out, not the workout. Workout's easy. It's getting there. Okay? Self-discipline. It's important that you know during the interview process that you're going to be tested. They're going to ask you questions, you're going to be tested. Think about it, process it, and give an answer. And it's okay to test them. What do I mean by that is because they're testing you, it's important for you to test them as well because they want to know that you can stand on your own feet. So when you're tested, test them back. Don't over-test them. That's 9. Number 10. Test. I'm sorry. Self-discipline was 8. 9 was test. We got it? I don't have numbers down there. I got to count. It's sort of like in a field. I count the player 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 10. What's one thing I can never do on a football field? With the coach. Lose your cool. Lose your composure. I can never, you tell me, you saw these coaches yelling at me for years. You think one time I just want to go off? No, I can't. In the interview process, one thing you can never do, lose your composure. Why? Job comes down, Joanne gets it, you don't get it. Joanne's upset. You call up, send a letter, oh, that should have been. Joanne, you think that's the only interview Joanne's going to? Probably not. All of a sudden, 2 days later, another job calls Joanne and says, hey, Joanne, we made a decision. We want you to come work for our ABC company. And Joanne says, I just took another job. She's thinking to herself, well, wait a minute. This job is better than this. I'm going to take this job. Call them back. You know, I accepted that job 2 days ago, but somebody just called me, and I got to take the other position. It's more money. It's better where it is, travel, everything. Number 2 just turned into number 1 because you didn't lose your composure. You sent a nice letter. Thank you very much for the time. Always be first class when you're done with the interview process. Is it hard? Yes. You think it's hard for me not to go off on a coach when they're screaming and yell at me for something that didn't even come close to happening? No, doesn't matter. You lose your composure. I lose my composure on a field or anywhere in professional sales or anything. You're going to tell me a situation anybody lost their composure and won from it. Not happening. See my point? That's number 10. Never lose your composure. I'm going to finish up fast here. Okay? Okay. Okay, good. So that's the 10 ways of being professional. The last thing I'm going to talk about today is self-evaluation. As soon as you're done with that interview, in your car, in their lobby, you might be at a hotel, get somewhere and start making notes. And have that. I do this with football games. Every play keeps going over and over and over. And should I throw that flag or shouldn't? Well, I'll know sooner or later. Wednesday comes out the grades, and you get the email, and you're like, and it's funny because sometimes the ones I thought I just turned out, I don't look so bad. And then the ones I thought I was, oh, man, that's terrible. And then, it's funny how I sit and watch football games with fans, and they go, oh, that's terrible. And I said, but you know what? I'm on the field. It didn't look that bad that close. I don't know why that is, but it is. It happens. Okay? So, talk about self-evaluation. Number 1, in the interview process, what did we learn? Something during that interview you learn, and you want to make sure you remember it and know it. That way you can always refer back to it. Number 2, what would you do different? What would I do different? I said this, I shouldn't have said that, or I should have said this, I left this out. My point being is you're in that interview process and the second interview and you're going to a third interview, maybe you can get back to that. Something you overmissed or something. So what did I do different? What would I do different? What did I do right? Something that opened up their eyes, and you know how it is? You do something and you just connect with the person. It's a nonverbal thing. they liked that and they just stopped or something and made a note or something, you just clicked. So what did I do right? Well, the next one is easy. What did I do wrong? Something wrong that turned them off, or didn't connect, or it went to the other way, or let's not do that again. Or hit a sore subject with them. Yeah, I remember that, but I don't, you'll get the feeling. You'll get a feeling when you're in this interview process, and everything we talked about today is going to all come in. So when things happen, you're going to react to it. And that's what you're doing in an interview process. You're going through your steps, and you're reacting to it. And it's the same way what you do every day in a job. Okay, so that's the next one is, what did I do wrong? What did I say I was going to do? What do I mean by that is, in that interview process, you might have said, do I need to send you references? Do I need to send you phone numbers? Do I need to send you this? Do I need to have somebody contact you? I don't care what it is, but if you made a promise during that interview, make sure you write it down so you get it done. Nothing worse is, we have a mutual friend in Jim so-and-so. Oh, really? You know Jim? Yes. Could you have him call me? Make sure you know that. Let's follow up. You come back to the next interview, and, you didn't have Jim call me. How bad is that? How bad is that? That's where you don't want to be. That's why as soon as you get down to interview, you start making notes. This is self-evaluation. Did I get a new contact? During that interview process, let's say maybe you're not good for this division. Well, ask the question. Is it a pretty big company? Is there somewhere else that I could possibly get to, or there would be an opening that I might be right for? Is there a person I could contact that? And if everything went well, that person's going to say, absolutely, that's a good person. We could use them, not here, but maybe over here. And actually, that's what happened with the gentleman that I was working with that never interviewed before. I had told him that get a new contact, and found out, went into another division. Any questions to that point? During this period, it's mind over matter. We've been through some rough things. I've been through it. Live and learn how to forgive. I said it earlier, it's not important what you did, it's what's important what you're going to do. My football career is over. I had a nice career, doesn't matter. You got to move on. Whatever happened to you, job-wise or why you're here, it doesn't matter. Live and learn how to forgive. It's not what you did, it's what you're going to do. You take all this, what we talked about today, and you put it in a whole kind of process, and you work on it, and you practice on it. And you're going to be that person that's going to get that job, and 6 months from now, you're like, all worked out. It happens to everybody. But understand where you're at in the process. It's been an absolute pleasure to be back here today to talk with you. I really appreciate your time, and good luck to everybody.